So, I talk quite a lot about relationships and sex and love, and actually, this episode I'm actually supposed to be talking about cheating. But I usually like to make a lot of jokes about America because, there's almost no day when you run out of comedy when you actually look at how American people are. Because it's either they'll give you something funny or something particularly weird. Although what I have this time is actually pretty weird because the Alabama committee passed a HB 322 bill which will ban transgender women from women's restrooms and transgender men from men's restrooms in schools. Now, that seems pretty weird if you look at it from a visual sense because, it's not like we see the penis or the vagina in someone, not unless if they're walking naked. But my bigger issue is, why is an Alabama committee focusing on something that's so specific as a transgender using a certain gender's restroom when they have slightly bigger issues to deal with? Like, when Cody decides to fuck his sister Ingrid. Like, is that where they actually draw the line?
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
I honestly find it a bit hard to imagine how it would go down because imagine you're Cody over there and then all of a sudden, you're looking at Ingrid and you're like, come on, Ingrid, you really want to do these? And then Ingrid's over there like, oh, Cody, as long as Mama and Pop don't find us, I'm sure we can do it and not get caught, right? Then all of a sudden someone gets pregnant. Like, I feel like that one's a slightly bigger issue as opposed to transgenders using bathrooms. But I don't know. Maybe it's a culture thing. Maybe Alabama people just love it like that. East or west, home's pussy is best. Anyway, sorry. I think I just make too many Alabama jokes. But anyways, back to what it is that I was talking about, the transgenders using the bathrooms. It is actually a visual confusion for a lot of people because you think about it. Someone who has a wig or has long hair, has a set of tits, walking into the men's, and in your head you're thinking, she probably walked into the wrong bathroom, and then you're like, hey, is everything okay? And then while you're expecting someone with a sweet voice, all of a sudden you're just hearing, yeah, I'm good. And then they check into the bathroom. Like, it's gonna seem a little bit interesting for a lot of people. Or, they walk to the urinal and they lift up their skirt and then they chuck their dick. Probably it's a big one, so some of y'all might even see it. And then they start taking a piss. It is going to be particularly interesting. But worse still for the women who'll see some bald guy with a beard busy checking in and they're going to the restroom, and while these guys are ready to file a complaint, they realize that because of the Alabama committee, this is a guy with a pussy who happened to walk in and take a piss, and there's nothing that any of them can do about it. Like, it's actually going to drive people mad to a certain degree. More so the woke women. The Karens are going to be going mad about this shit, and they'll start asking for transgender bathrooms to be built. It's just that is actually a much higher cost than passing such a bill. So they probably might not go that far with this. So we might as well also not go that far with it as well and actually get onto the podcast, which I should have started. But considering the amount of Alabama issues that I had to talk about, I think we can excuse ourselves and just simply start by saying, welcome to Breaktime on West Side, your number one breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who believes that time is relative. And hopefully if there's someone from Alabama that's listening to this, they probably won't start fucking their clock. He's a man whose workout plan just recently included jumping to conclusions. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex, and relationships show where I get to talk about love, sex, and relationships, maybe make jokes about Alabama, somebody gets pissed, but normally at the end of it, I usually have a conclusion. And if you agree with that conclusion or if you disagree with that conclusion, then the place to hit me up on is at Breaktime on Westside on IG, at Breaktime on Westside on Facebook, and at Bagakadadi on Twitter because that is my personal handle. And we can hash shit out from there. Then we can probably even make, conversation that can lead to future episodes and shit. And if you happen to be on any one of those apps at the moment as you're listening, or, when you want to go and deliver feedback, then, a nice quick follow would be appreciated. It doesn't cost anything, and, it makes me feel good seeing a +1 on my end. And if you are listening to an app that allows for ratings and reviews, a nice rating and or review would be highly appreciated. Shoots me up the charts, makes me talk about how much chart-topping podcasts are, blah, blah, blah. You've probably heard this part before. But anyways, that said, we should definitely move it on to our main topic of today. But before we do that, I want to talk about something real quick. Now, this past weekend, I managed to watch 365 Days' sequel, or 365 Days 2, or whatever it is that it's called. And first of all, I feel like I should be applauded on that. I feel like I deserve props for that shit, because anyone who has interacted with me on a personal level, anyone who's asked me about watching 365 DNI or 365 Days, knows how much I hate the concept of watching such a movie. Like, it's said that it's a shit movie. Even the people that watched it to its completion know that it's a shit movie. And for me, who actually tried watching the first one, I fell asleep. And I can't even remember why I fell asleep at. I just knew it was at the beginning, and I woke up and it was 30 minutes through, and I just closed it because it was absolute garbage. Now, when I watched this second one, of which I was actually doing it on a very reluctant level, so the babe that actually got me to watch this, and you're probably hearing this, pat yourself on the back, it actually did open my eyes to something. Like, I am always so ready to talk shit about 365 Days and how pathetic of a movie it is and how it's only good for the sex scenes. But when I actually sort of looked at it, because I only watched the first 10-15 minutes of it, it actually opened my eyes to something particularly interesting. That movie in and of itself is literally pornography for women. Like, there's no better way to put it. It is pornography for women. Because when you kind of look at it, alright, for us guys, when we're told about a sex scene, this thing is good for sex scenes, blah, blah, blah. Like, for us guys, we don't really watch a series just because of the sex scenes. Like, go and check with most guys. We rarely ever do it primarily for the sex scenes. We'll want the storyline behind it, because if we simply wanted sex scenes, we just go to the hub. Simple as that. But when it comes to the babes, they could also go to the hub. But when you kind of look at it, the hub was primarily made for guys. Yes, there's a for women category and everything, but it doesn't really do much justice. Because when you look at sex for guys, it's literally just the act, which is why we will go to a porn website, not really focus that much on the storyline, and pretty much just go to the bits where, there's the stuff that we like. So maybe head, maybe the position that we'd have preferred, our favorite position or something. Say maybe it's doggy, maybe it's cowgirl, maybe it's 69, maybe it's missionary, whichever. Like, we'll look for a video that has that, we'll look for a babe with the body type that we'd like, and then we'll go ahead and we'll watch it, of which, even though it's a 5-minute video, we'll probably end up viewing it for 2, maybe 3 minutes in 30-second bits, just for the parts that we'd like, and then that's it. But you look at Sex for Babes, it's like an entire experience, because you look at 365 Days too, because it had sex scenes from the beginning, and it made perfect sense why it is that babes would like it, because you kind of look at it, there's the European ideal of what a masculine man is supposed to look like, well built, well dressed in a suit, sort of rugged but still has a skincare routine and shit, maybe a few tattoos here and there, and that one properly checks the boxes. Then there's the kind of canned attention that he'll have when it comes to lovemaking, but he'll also be disrespectful with his sex and be a bit aggressive and shit, but also have a bit of space to be submissive, and let himself get tied up a little bit while the babe is feeling all sexy and shit, so that she can feel empowered. When I saw all of it, the first thing that clicked in my mind was every single one of the things that my female friends used to tell me when we were back in campus, my female friends and also the gay guys that I chill with. And those guys, every single one of the things that were happening in those sex scenes was literally every single one of those things that those guys were busy telling me in the name of fantasies that they'd like to have. So it kind of made sense to me, because instead of using the American ideal of a masculine man, which is a lot more braggy and overconfident, they chose a more European kind that's a bit more quiet but fairly powerful. The guy had money. But at the end of the day, you kind of realize that this in and of itself is actually what female pornography is actually supposed to be. And I'm not going to say that I've watched the for women category on Pornhub, but I'm hoping that it picks a couple of cues from this, or gave a couple of cues to 365 Days, because this is actually what babes would like to see. So maybe this is something that the fellas should definitely pick up. Probably they can go ahead and watch either 365 Days 1 or 2, try and skip to the sex scenes and see what it is that these babes would like done to them. That way, it might actually be something for you to learn from in the bedroom. If you feel like you're a bit lackluster, or you feel like there is room for improvement on your end. And obviously, since it's something that I couldn't really watch for that long, because honestly, if I wanted to see sex scenes, I'd go to the hub, I'd probably suggest a more suitable alternative, one that kind of tried to bring the two together, male and female. And beyond just that, gave us a pretty good series with a good amount of drama and a good amount of action, so that I guess both sides can actually like. Now, the name of that series is Power. The first one more so. I feel like that one actually captured both ends pretty well. And if anything, at least I enjoyed watching that one in all 6 of its seasons, all 60 of those episodes, and even the spin-offs to a certain degree. But that said, I will definitely leave it at that, because this is not a TV series podcast or a movie review podcast or anything like that, and I will move it on to our main topic of today. Now, for those of y'all that have listened to this podcast since its inception, or since a past couple of episodes or something of the sort, then you probably know that I talk about cheating on this podcast a lot. It's something that to a certain degree I almost feel like I study, because it's one of the biggest issues when it comes to relationships. But more so than that, it's a particularly interesting thing to look into, because there's so many ways to look at it, and there's people that look at it from a disrespectful point of view. There's some people that look at it as exercising options. There's some people who believe black men don't cheat. And there's so many different outlooks, plus even the ones that I bring in, such as the 2-3 different kinds of cheating. But while I do usually try to make it seem as simple as possible, it's never usually that simple. Stuff is a little bit more complicated than you'd actually sort of see it, because telling someone that it's either they cheated because of internal effects or external effects, or it's maybe because it was revenge cheating or something of the sort, can sometimes seem a little too general. And there are 2 cases here that kind of complicate that a little bit more. So I have 2 clips here, one from the Nairobi Gossip Club, which is actually sort of a text that was sent, and a clip from the Big Facts podcast, which kind of illustrate that stuff might be a little bit more complicated, and I'll try to uncomplicate and sort of try and make some sense out of both of them. So I'm gonna start with the Ruby Rose clip, just so that I can bring out the good side of things before I give it a nice twist with the Nairobi Gossip Club article. So let me start with the Ruby Rose one, and it's a very quick video clip, so let me just play it for you and then we can discuss it. So here it is.
What the fuck do you be doing to these niggas, bruh? Because it's like all of a sudden they'll like go on a rant about everything, and then the next week they'll be like begging to come back and like crying in the car. So,
I'm glad you see that.
What is it that makes that chemistry like so explosive and so volatile that like everybody is just like, oh my God, and then the next week they're like, I'm sorry, like what the fuck?
I don't know. I think for one, of course everybody says this about themselves, but I think I know I'm like a good girl to these guys that I deal with, like,
yeah.
So I'm nothing but good to them. But yeah, of course I get crazy, like if a nigga cheats or like does whatever, so I talk crazy.
That you don't agree with.
Of course, so
Yeah.
I'll leave. I'm comfortable with leaving, and then they'll beg back, I guess. And then, it's just that back and forth thing.
Okay, I had to get that out because I was
I'm
like,
sorry.
I was wondering about that. So now we're good. What we doing, Scream?
Alright, so after listening to that, and after going through the comments, I do kind of feel sorry for the kind of backlash that this babe received because of what she said. Ruby Rose actually came out to, talk about how she does seem, or she does feel like she's a very good woman, and that'll make a lot of guys come back. Of which, in as much as there's babes that will be in the comment section be saying, oh, she's a doormat, oh, she's being taken advantage of, blah, 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 niggas will treat her like shit, blah, blah. I feel like there is some truth to that. Like, there genuinely is some truth to it, in that there's times when a guy will cheat on his babe and actually go out and start fucking around, or go and start, doing some shit with another babe. And then over time, at some point, they realize that they messed up. That, the seemingly green pasture was just a bunch of carpet. So they want to go back through the fence, or, jump over the fence and go back to, the babe that was a lot better than this other babe. And it's something that happens a lot. it's something that happens a lot. It's just that people don't talk about it as much. And hell, I guess it even happens to the babes as well, but it sort of depends on certain circumstances, and I can't really speak that much for the babes because, well, I don't have vagina and shit. And it's very common when someone is getting to the point where the relationship has become sort of boring or mundane, or when they get comfortable in the relationship, or when they're having a lot of issues. And I know that sort of sounds like, when it's good, normal, and bad, but honestly, it's just at the point where the both of y'all are used to each other. There's nothing particularly special. There's no butterflies in the stomach, and you guys are sort of now used to each other. And because you guys are sort of used to each other and there's nothing particularly special, and you guys have just been together for a bit of a while, then you find that for some guys, the fact that another baby is supposedly giving him more attention and trying to be all sexual and seductive with him and shit, and gets the blood boiling and shit, might actually make them think that this babe might actually be a much better option than his current babies. And a lot of those guys will actually end up conceding and will end up either cheating on their babe with this other shorty or dropping their babe for this other shorty. And a lot of times shit can go sideways. You end up having this babe as a side chick, and then you drop your main chick, and then you make this babe your main chick. Then you realize that she's very useless as a main chick, and she was a lot better off as a side chick. Then, you want to drop this one and then go back to the main one. Like, it happens a lot for guys. It's a very common thing that'll happen for guys. Or you might find that this guy is probably cheating on his babe with like a bunch of different babes, nothing long term, just banging this one, banging that one. And you can kind of look at it and be like, you know what? It's probably a simple case of, I was walking around, I saw a fine bit of pussy, I slipped and I fell inside. Simple cases like that shit. But can I say that the main chick is being used as a doormat in that case? Most likely not. Most likely not. You might find that these guys are chasing a certain element of fun that the main chick isn't really giving. I'm not saying that it's impossible for them to give it, it's just that it's very common for them to sort of not offer it as much once the relationship gets to a certain level. And a lot of guys will cheat during that point in time. Now, am I saying that what they're doing is good or acceptable? Well, you all know my stance on this. I don't endorse cheating. But am I saying that they will be disrespectful with their wives, or that they want to treat their wives like a doormat? Not really. Although, let me give a different case where it is that this guy is clearly treating his babe like a doormat. And it's in the Nairobi Gossip Club article, and I'm going to read it for you here. And it says, and I quote, "Hello, actually I need some advice, okay? I've been dating this guy for like a year. So the problem is that he has cheating issues. Some months ago, I caught him cheating on me with some other girl. We solved the issue, so we continued dating. And so today, I found out that he is cheating on me with another girl while I was going through his phone. Actually, I haven't shared this with him yet because I'm still confused on what to do. Though the guy has money and I was taking advantage of that because I come from a humble background. I'm also afraid of losing him because I still love him. So should I continue with this relationship, like pretend if nothing has happened and plan on my revenge? Or should I dump the guy and continue with my life?" End quote. Okay, now that kind of put the whole idea of, treating your girlfriend like a doormat into perspective. As opposed to how Ruby Rose's case came through, this one seems a lot more like a doormat, because this guy is clearly going out, he's cheating, he's getting busted by his babe, and he's like, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do it again. And then after a bit of a while, obviously when he feels like the coast is clear, he goes ahead and he starts doing it again. And it's also fairly common for some guys to do that, because there are some guys that will treat their babe like a doormat in this particular way. Now, my personal thoughts, I think this guy is genuinely treating his babe like this simply because he knows she is with him because of the kind of life that he can afford to give her. So if he knows that that's the kind of hold that he has on her, then he knows very well whether he cheats or not, this babe will probably stick with him because she likes the kind of monetary advantage that he has. Now, am I saying that guys should do that shit? No, not necessarily. But do I think that babes have taken advantage of guys for such reasons? Yes, they do. They do that a lot. And I'm not saying that it justifies her being cheated on like that, but if you're with someone for such a reason and it's very blatant, then it's pretty apparent that this guy will know whether he cheats on you or not, that he knows that he's in the clear. yes, there could be trouble, yes, there could be fussing and fighting, but whether you say you love him or not, you like the kind of life that he gives you. So he will give you that life, and in exchange, he just wants you to chill the fuck out and stop making so much noise for him, whether he's gonna stay faithful with you or whether he's gonna go and fuck some other babe that's probably more fun than you are. And guys do this all the time. But you want to know the main difference between actually these two kinds of situations, these two exact case scenarios that I've given? Well, one is a lot more disrespectful than the other. Because when you look at one of them, the babe seems to offer a lot, such that this guy might leave, but he wants to come back. Alright? This guy is clearly going out there. Yes, maybe he might see some fine pussy. Yes, maybe the flesh is weak and the spirit isn't strong enough to pull him back, so he decides to fuck. Alright, that's cool, that makes sense. But in this other scenario, this guy clearly knows this baby is going to be around. It's not that he wants to go back, he just knows this babe is still around, so he can go and he can fuck around because he knows she is still going to be around. Like, there's a difference to it. And yes, in the first case scenario, the guy might have to leave to realize that he fucked up, but in the second one, this guy isn't going to leave because he knows even though he fucks up, this babe won't leave him. And at the end of the day, when you look at both babes, Ruby Rose is wanted in the relationship and this other chick exists in that same relationship. So, in conclusion, let me just try and put it like this. People are going to cheat in many different ways. Guys are going to cheat for multiple different reasons. And yes, I did keep stuff, general, and I said, people will cheat for external or internal reasons and shit. But in this particular case, while I hate to assume, I'd honestly say that either one of these cases can be for either one of external or internal reasons. Because, these case studies are sort of still fairly general and we don't know the specifics of everything. But what I can say is, if it is for internal reasons, then you can clearly see that Ruby Rose's man will definitely want to come back because he realizes that the grass isn't as green as he thought it was. Now, with this other guy, it doesn't really matter to him whether the grass looks green on the other side but is or isn't, or whether it's a carpet, or whether it's someone that just went and painted the grass. At the end of the day for him, he just wants to play outside. And probably that should be the guy that you should be very, very afraid of, as opposed to the first guy that probably cheated for internal reasons. But either way, both of those are cheaters. I do not endorse cheating, and I might be wrong about this entire thing, so I want your thoughts on this. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. And if you are listening through Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly. And I will catch you guys on the next break.